dog-to-dog issues and testing and aggression. And we've got a couple of real dogs. I hesitate to say live dogs because I know half of you think all I do is kill them and they're dead anyway. But these are actual demo dogs from the shelter, and they are alive. And we're going to just look, there's only 2 of them, but we're going to look at their behavior with each other. And I'm probably going to give you a couple of scenarios. I haven't met them, but I'm going to give you scenarios. Like I'm going to pretend that this dog on this side belongs to the adopter and it's coming to meet that dog, which is your shelter dog. And I'll show you how to do the assessment and would you do the placement? If so, why? And if not, why not? So I'm going to have you look at those things. Why do you test dogs for his behavior with other dogs before placing or determining placement? At some point they are going to be in contact with them. Most adopters have dogs, or a lot of adopters have dogs. What are you looking for? There's I think 3 things you look for when you're testing dogs with other dogs. First and foremost, you are looking to determine, is this dog a killer? In other words, if he gets loose in his lifetime, would he kill another dog? Would he seek out and do, incredible harm? Those are rare, but they're out there. And if they're going to be anywhere, it's going to be in a shelter, not in a home. So, very important to test for that. And there are a lot of cases of dogs having killed other dogs. It is a huge trauma for both people, both parties involved. More so for the person who lost the dog, but it's equally traumatic for the person who owns the dog that's done that kind of damage. So you're looking for a killer. You're looking for the heat-seeking missile. If and when he gets the chance, would he go and kill another dog? Look how annoying that is. I'll put it down here. No, I can't put liquid anywhere near my electronics. I know myself. The other thing to look at is, could this dog live in a home with another dog? And if so, what would be the best type? Opposite sex, same age, different age, whatever. You're trying to determine. There are dogs that come out and all they want to do is play. There are dogs who come out and all they do is ignore. And there are dogs who come out and they want status and it's important and they want to be top dog or low dog or whatever. And so you want to look at the dog. Could he be placed with another dog? Would that be good for him or bad for him? And if so, if it'd be good for him, who would you place him with? And the third thing you want to find out when you're testing dogs with other dogs is, how is the dog when he's on leash and he sees another dog? Because while the majority of dogs who display on leash with other dogs can play with them off leash and they don't kill them, it is a nightmare to own a dog that displays aggressively on leash to other dogs. And it's very limiting for adopters. They stop taking them for walks, or they limit the amount of walks. They don't take them on trails. They can't go hiking with them. Or every single walk they take, if they're in an urban environment, is a nightmare. And so you want to find out how the dog is on leash with another dog. And that's never as much a placement euthanasia decision as it is what type of environment could you place them in. I mean, there are people who want a dog, they have a fenced-in backyard, and they don't really take their dog anywhere but the vet. And then if it's a non-aggressive dog to other dogs, but on leash, it's bad, it's not going to do a lot of harm in that home. However, if you're right in Chicago and the neighborhood the person that is going to adopt the dog is from, God bless you, they're going to meet other dogs during every walk, then that's a nightmare placement. And sometimes if the dog is past everything else but he's on leash, aggressive, and you're in an urban or suburban environment where all of your adopters have other dogs, it's often worth a swap. Send that dog to a more rural shelter and take in one of their dogs. Where my shelter's in upstate New York in the Catskills, we have a number of very rural adopters who won't maybe even have a fenced-in yard. And although we have a lot of hikers, people like to take their dogs out on the trails. And since I like to take my dogs out on the trails, and it seems every single time I do, I meet a dog that was adopted from my shelter on the trails, yet it's in my best interest to place pretty nice dogs out there. telling you right now. So those are the three basic reasons why we test dogs. And when you ask a room full of professional dog trainers, like at the dog training conferences, if you say to 100 or 200 dog trainers, you're like, how many of you have never, not once, had your dog either slip his collar, break a leash, escape out of your yard, or disappear while you were hiking with him for more than 5 seconds? And literally out of hundreds of dog trainers, maybe one person will raise their hand and say, oh, I've never lost my dog. And you know that they're either lying or they've only had one dog. But the truth of the matter is, among professionals, things happen. One of my dogs, I have a fence, mostly stockade, mostly 6 foot. And my Rhodesian Doberman mix, who's now 13 and a lot better behaved, when she was young, to this day I still don't know how she did it, but I'm in my house and I look out the front and this big red thing whizzed past the front window and I'm like, oh, I've got a fenced in yard and I just let my dog out back. That couldn't be my dog. Then I'm like, but whose dog would it be? And then I go into the backyard, no dog, and I still have no idea how she escaped. She could do it again, except now she's 13. I don't know whether she saw a deer and she went over or under, or I dream a genie or something, but she was out. She never did it again. We didn't fix anything because I didn't know where she got out. But she was gone. And then she was in the neighbors, she went through the woods, thankfully, to the next people. And by the time I found her, there's all these wild roses that grow in the ditches on the side of the highway. We're right off a main highway. And I ran up to the highway and stopped traffic with my body. And I was completely hysterical, crying, sobbing, completely hysterical. And I've got traffic stopped, literally 18-wheelers, and they're all waiting there. And my dog's on the other side of the rose bushes, and she's terrified to come to me because I'm screaming, come here! She wouldn't come to me. And then I didn't want to go to get her. She wouldn't come through the thorns. I didn't want to go get her because I would start traffic again. I was afraid she'd bolt into traffic. So it was so embarrassing. We eventually got her. She was fine. But dogs, they get away from you. They escape. And if you're placing a seriously dog-aggressive dog, it's unethical, I think, to do so. Again, your own choices are what to do with the truly dog-aggressive Maltese, as opposed to the truly dog-aggressive medium to large dog, which is different. But there's a lot of other things to take into account, besides just size. The way we test dog-to-dog behavior, it's done at the end, and we do it on leash, on tight leashes in a small space. It's the worst way for dogs to meet. Absolute worst way for dogs to meet. Tight leash, small space. We do that because it is also the most common way for real dogs to meet. Almost anybody, and I just got back, so did Mayor, we just got back from Camp Gone to the Dogs. It was 180 camper dogs and probably, 80 staff dogs. And they're all on leash except when they're either doing agility or going for the guided walks. And they are all, even though you tell people don't let your dog go up to another dog when he's on leash, because, they're going up. They're all going up to each other and meeting on leash. And so that's how we do it in the shelter. When we're testing, we have a small amount of time. We want to see the worst case scenario as long as it's common. I don't want to set the dog up for some scenario that will never happen. I want to set him up for the common scenario and the worst case scenario so I can see him how he does at his worst and what will inevitably be out in public. So unless you have a staff dog that is a known quantity and very good with other dogs, then you can test 2 dogs, but you really will only know how that dog is with that dog. But, if you bring out this dog and he's calm and quiet and he won't even look at that dog, you don't really know if it's because this dog is calm and quiet or that dog's so aggressive that this dog doesn't dare try anything. So if you have 2 unknown dogs, you have to do multiples. And you have to keep this dog constant and switch those dogs and then switch. Okay? Okay. So on leash. And one person holds this dog, other person comes into the room, And today we're going to probably use the stage as our distance. You want to keep them close enough so they can see each other, but far enough apart, at least 10 feet, so they can't get to each other. And for 30 seconds, you'll just hold the dogs apart and see what their reaction is. And you do that because you're adding frustration in, which is what creates often on-leash aggression. And so one of the things you do is you restrain. They can't get to each other. They can see each other, but they can't get there. Because you add frustration, and it'll either feed in with aggression or other things, and you'll be able to see better what the dog is like when he's on leash. After 30 seconds, you're also assessing, is it safe to continue on? What would tell you it's not safe to move closer? What kind of lunging, though? Pulling so hard they lift their feet up off the ground. Well, what if it's a beagle? Lunging with snapping and snarling. What about the silent dog? It's a lot of different things, isn't it? Yeah, so I'm going to talk about what to look for. Most important thing to start looking for is there communication? Is there two-way communication between this dog and that dog? In other words, if this dog lunges, does that dog, can he do something that would stop him from lunging or make him lunge more? Or is he just lunging at first sight? Are the dogs responding to each other, or is this dog just acting? And so you want to look at to see if there's any communication at all. The other thing you want to see is where does the behavior start and where does it go? So if the dog comes out and he's like pulling on leash and he comes in and he sees the other dog and he's straining and he never calms down and he gets worse and worse and worse as like hackles go up and he's just straining and then he's whining and then he's yelping, then you were saying, look, this dog is escalating more and more and the situation isn't warranting it. Right? Nothing's happening. It's not like that person's playing with the dog and arousing him. Or you might see a dog come in straining on leash, and then he comes up here and he looks around, calms down a little bit, and then you see that his behavior is sort of deflating. Or it changes. It's not just getting worse each minute, each second. So you want to look at where behavior goes, and so where it starts, and is it a response or is it just the dog doing whatever he wants regardless of what that dog's doing. So that's useful as well. There are a bunch of different behaviors where I would or wouldn't approach another dog, and I'll get detailed when we see dogs. I'll show you footage. If it seems relatively safe, then the two people approach. I'm not going to step in front of the laser beam again, but the two people approach, and most dogs at this point are pulling in on a tight leash, which isn't good, but there's nothing you can do about it. And as they're approaching, again, you're looking, are they calming down, or is it staying the same, or are they escalating? Because you can abort the mission at any point. And if things, seem the same, or a little bit less, or no worse, keep them meeting. The next thing is, what happens when they go nose to nose? Is it an instantaneous fight? In which case you pull them apart, they're still on leash, they haven't twisted. Or as soon as they meet, are they still just staying the way they have been? What's happening? Are they communicating, looking at each other? If there's no instantaneous fight or something horrible, then both leashes will immediately get loose, and the handlers must prepare to do this intense maypole to stay ahead of the leashes and the dogs, and it's usually circling. And the dogs usually circle to the right, but not always. Because then you want to keep them interacting, but on loose leashes. Sorry, that was probably really loud. Was that loud? No? Okay, good. So those are the things. There's 4 behaviors: the restraint and frustration, the approach, nose to nose, and then loose leash interaction. And I think dog-to-dog behavior is a lot harder to learn and interpret than dog-to-human behavior. Because with dog-to-human behavior, the human part of it is fairly constant, or at least you can control it. With dog-to-dog behavior, it's so dependent on each dog. So it's a lot harder to interpret. And I have, like 2 hours, so I want to give you as much as possible, and then we're going to look at the dogs that we have and talk about them. There are a lot of times when we get transfers of dogs in from the south or from rural areas, they've either come, some are crated together, or they have been together. And if in some of the young southern dogs, if we don't see any particular dog-to-dog problems, the dog's passed every part of the test and he's been sort of in the shelter environment and not shown anything, he may go untested for dog-to-dog stuff until an owner wants to adopt him. We know he's not a dog killer, but we just would then look at the owner's dog and that dog in particular. But for the most part, they will get formally tested because you see more, and it's important. It's important to know what they're like with other dogs. There were 2 studies done in Germany, in I think 2 separate German shelters. They were done by Dr. Petra Mertens, and it's an amazing study. It was a while ago now, probably at least 10 years. And they looked at, I believe in one of the shelters, they group housed the dogs in large pens during the day, and then at night they were kenneled separately like they usually are. And in the other shelter, they doubled them up so that there were 2 dogs in every pen. And I don't know how they did it, but they looked at sort of stress-related behaviors like barking and spinning and a number of other things. And they were comparing the doubled up and the group housed dogs to singly housed dogs. And they found that there were, I think they staved off the onset of a lot of stress-related behaviors. There was less barking, less deterioration in both the doubled up dogs and the group housed dogs. And not only that, but I think they had an interesting result that they didn't expect, and that is that in the doubled up dogs and in the group housed dogs, the adoptions worked out better. They had less returns. And they didn't know why that would be, except maybe they thought that people were adopting not because they felt sorry for the dogs or because they adopted the one dog that wasn't barking in a kennel full of barking dogs, but they adopted by making better choices because they saw dogs behaving, in a group with other dogs. Anyway, after that study, I was very resistant to it. I'm like, they don't have any pit bulls in Germany. What do they know about the kind of dogs we get in this country? But they have all intact dogs. And they got Rottweilers and Shepherds and a lot of pretty heavy-duty, not so wholesome with other dogs, breeds in general. So anyway, after that, we started trying it. We started doubling up some of the dogs, and we found it a huge benefit to give them some social time, company, and they're often really cute together, right? And people, find them cute. I'll show you when it works and when it doesn't. The only issue that we've seen is it's often we can't give them toys in their kennel. And a lot of times the ones that get along the best are adolescents who really need toys. So we'll either try to separate them at some point during the day and give each one a chew toy so they have a little access to both. We don't do unsupervised play groups unless it's really like 2 or 3 completely benign, safe young dogs. I'm pretty cautious about dog-to-dog stuff. We feel it's better supervised. But anyway, very, very helpful to double them up. Okay, so this is going to be a test. This dog's name is Prancer. And she's meeting, it says down here Dancer, but it's not, it's Vixen. This was obviously the Christmas transport. And I appreciate that they all had names. I know which transport they came on, but I could not tell them all apart. Anyway, this dog is 10-month-old female, and this is her test, and she's going to meet, I believe she actually meets Donner, who's a Black Spaniel mix. And this is their test, and we'll take a look at it and we'll talk about it. And so we're going to be looking at this dog's behavior. So what did she do? She was standing up. Was she fully frontal? Were her eyes, head, and spine aligned when she was standing? No, she was offset, which is less threatening and less aggressive than standing fully frontal. So that was good. It's a little bit more open communication. She's off to the side, waiting to see how the other dog's going to respond. Is she lunging forward at the end of her leash uncontrollably? No. Is she behind the tester? No. So she's in front of the tester. She was standing, and then I think she sat and then yawned, or yawned and then sat. And she's still not completely frontal to the dog. She's still a little offset, which is less threatening. That's good. And she barked once. She looked away. Did you see her look away? I always count how many times they look away. I think it's a good sign when a dog doesn't fixate on the other dog and actually has the time to look around the environment or look at humans. So that was a good thing. She put her ears back briefly, didn't move anything else. She's been hard staring, but she's not been escalating and she's not been straining, but she's been looking directly and fairly hard at the other dog. Now she's barking. Is she barking and lunging and getting more and more out of control? No, not at all. In fact, she's sitting. There she sat and kind of backed up a little bit, so you see little elements of fear, just tiny little bit of fear. And she barked, and then she goes forward. And this dog was sideways. This is Vixen, I believe. And she approaches, watching the other dog, looking at the other dog for what the other dog's going to do. They're both looking at each other. This is very nice communication. I mean, this is not your ideal response, a little barking and a little whatever, but it's completely appropriate and fine. A little shoulder rub of the other dog. Then what do the dogs do? Okay, bye-bye. There are people here, things to do, places to see. I think that's a great sign. And I think it's a great sign whether they're going to live together or whether they're just going to get adopted to go out in public, because the dogs are saying people are very important, dogs are secondary, so I know that they're going to be more apt to bond to people. There'll be more, owners will be able to get their attention more in public around other dogs, even without training. There's some nice innate qualities there. I am as concerned about obsessive dog play as I am about obsessiveness in fighting. In other words, two dogs that lock eyes and then only have eyes for each other and play and play and play are as concerning to me as two dogs that look like they just want to fight. And the reason is that level of obsession with another dog and that sort of uncontrolled play can very easily lead into aggression. It's a very fine line between that level of arousal and play and aggression. And also, a dog that is that keenly interested in another dog, an owner's going to have to fight really hard to get that dog's attention. And I know every owner's going to have control issues and training issues well enough without having to then contend with their dog's love of other dogs. So I look at that. I know that her hackles are up on the rear, and that's okay with me. This lighter dog's hackles are up. Those are sort of more fear hackles. I'm more concerned when two dogs meet that the razor hackles between the shoulder blades go up, a razor thin line. That is more arousal, and I don't like to see that in dog-to-dog stuff. If I see it, I want to see it disappear very quickly and not come back. But the rear hackles, it says to me she's a little unsure, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. So now they're coming back together. And this person, this light brown dog froze for a second, a little bit of warning for this darker brown dog who's being rather rude, right? Greeted her way up high, and the light brown dog was like, excuse me, and then her handler pulled her off, which I wouldn't have done. I would have let them communicate. There's not any serious aggression going on here. It's normal, appropriate communication. But she pulled her off. I wouldn't have bothered. And then both dogs now, they break off, they come back together, and I'm not filming, remember that. So the darker brown dog is more boisterous, a little physically intrusive, and a little rough, which then I see hackles are up on that dog. That's okay with me, it's deserved. Is the darker brown dog able to communicate with the lighter brown dog, or is she getting more and more excited and is she becoming more and more of a bully? I think she is being more appropriate. She's coming under more. She tries things less. It's like she'll paw at her and go like, does that annoy you?
I'm not touching you.
And there multiple times they break off and just try to explore the room. See, that's rude. That should get you growled at, but the light brown dog actually doesn't do much. Okay, now, so those were 2 female dogs, and both were appropriate with other dogs. And again, I haven't seen them with male dogs. I haven't seen them each with small dogs, but there was so few red flags from either of those dogs for any dog-to-dog behavior. It wasn't the most beautiful, right? It wasn't this perfect greeting where they are calm and soft and they come together and they play and it's beautiful. And however, I liked actually what I saw better than that. I thought they communicated well. One was a little rough, the other one was a little testy about it, totally appropriate. And they interacted, they stopped, they interacted, they stopped, they wanted to play, they didn't. It was beautiful. Not beautiful, but that's as good as life gets. Yes, the darker brown one was appropriately submissive to the lighter brown dog who froze a couple times to sort of, I think, to discipline her a little bit for being rude. Although she was rather pushy about her submissive behaviors, but it's clever, very clever. Oh, I'm being really submissive. I'm just going to come from below. You won't get annoyed now, but she's still a little pushy. That was fine. This is a 5-month-old yellow Labrador mix. And all I want you to do is narrate. If he had a GPS device, I want you to say, like, did he go north, south, east, west? I want you to tell me where he's going in the room. That's all I want you to observe. Forward, back, in, out, back turned. Oh. Then he comes back out. Is he more excited than the first 2 dogs you saw? Yes. Is he obsessed? No, didn't he leave the room once? Yeah. And twice. He's never been back there. He's never been in that room at all. And I actually followed him back there. I'm like, what the hell? What are you looking for? He didn't know. But it was good because that's the terror he's looking at. So the 5-month-old yellow lab mix is not communicating well, okay? Because you take one look at the toy fox terrier and you're like, that dog doesn't want to play. But he's like, come on, let's play. Okay, no, I'll go in the other room. Come on, let's play. All right. Oh, let's play. You. No, you. Oh. No. Is he predatory? No. What would predatory look like? No, predatory often looks, pet owners will say, oh, he just wants to play. Because it's often silent and intense. It doesn't actually look angry. Pupils aren't necessarily dilated, but it's often a very hard stare. Sometimes the head is lowered, and it's a fixation. And usually a fixation with an escalation in intensity. Is he straining at the end of his leash here? No. And so that dog you saw was at the end of his leash, and so the puppy was communicating. He was listening, which is impressive. And I would not let them meet because it's the little rat terrier's worst nightmare, right? To meet a 5-month-old Labrador. But the Labrador thinks it's a great idea. And he's horrified. What I like about the Labrador is he's very consistent about how he behaves. It's with people, it's with dogs. It's not very well thought out. Right? But he wears it on the outside. It's just like, here I am, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it with people, I'm going to do it with dogs. And he doesn't have a hard expression. He's not completely hyper-focused. And, okay, now.
Little dog saying, what a freak.
the little dog saying, "Just protect me from that monster." So that Labrador, that was in a shelter in Virginia. We were doing an off-site internship, so we were showing them how to evaluate temperament and deal with adopters and train dogs and provide quality of life. So we're doing assessments, and we bring him out. And we ended up transferring back. I drove home, or I think Jane drove home, with 3 dogs or 4 dogs. He was one of them, transferred him back north. And he was placed very quickly. I mean, he's a young Labrador, just a lovely, lovely dog. He was placed quickly. He ended up being adopted by the guy who is the town supervisor for the next town over. So kind of a high-level political guy in the neighborhood. That's great. Loves the dog. And so that was maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, maybe a year and a half ago. And over New Year's, I was at a music camp, a 3-day music camp over New Year's, local to us. So I'm with all these music people. They don't know me in my dog, profession at all. And so one musician friend is introducing me to a friend of his who's a local musician person. And he introduces me. He says, "Look, this is, Sue Sturmick. She runs the shelter up on Route 209. And she goes, oh, a neighbor of mine adopted a dog from you." And I'm like, "Please say it was a nice dog." And I'm like, "Oh, and how's the dog?" She's like, "Oh, he's nice. He's great." She goes, "His name is Jack." And I'm thinking, oh God, because was his name Jack when he was there, or did they rename him Jack, in which case I'd never remember him? So I'm like, "Was that his name at the shelter?" She goes, "I don't really know." I'm like, "Well, what does he look like?" So she's describing him. She's, he's like a year or two, and I'm like, "Well, how do you really know him?" And she goes, "Oh, I live next door." She goes, "I have this big coonhound mix." She says, "I didn't adopt it from you. We adopted it from another shelter." She says, "But, my coonhound has a dog door, and we have a fenced-in yard." And she says, "One night I'm in the house in bed, and all of a sudden there's a Labrador in my house playing with my coonhound. He leapt over the fence into her yard, came through the dog door, and starts playing with her coonhound, and it was that Labrador." And it's like, there you're like, oh, thank God he wasn't dog aggressive, right? Oh my God, because then it would have come right back to me. Yeah, you realize, you think you're placing dogs kind of to these anonymous people, so if it's, if you think it's not a very nice dog, well, it's okay, they're not really special people and I'll never see them again. And it's like, you never know who you're adopting to, right? I adopted a dog out to an elderly woman, and you know what? Turns out she is grandmother to Ray Coppinger's grandkids. Ray Coppinger's like my dog idol, the most well-respected dog person, most knowledgeable dog person in the country, perhaps the world today. And I think I'm just placing this little dachshund mix with this woman. And no, if it had bitten a grandchild, it would have been Ray Coppinger's grandchild, okay? This is how it works in life. You never know. You place every dog as if it's your own family. All right. Blue and white pit bull, also in Virginia. Now, is she straining at the end of her leash out of control? No. Has she looked away? No, she hasn't. She looked away there. Now she's backing off. The question is, what is she looking at? So again, you're not sure completely who she is, and you're not really sure who this black and white monster is. And it turns out the pit bull actually had fairly okay dog skills, just a little intense, but that black and white dog that she was meeting was just a monster, had already been returned, and was just a really difficult dog. So she was kind of backing off from that. Not very helpful. Hang on one second. Sorry, this is Prancer and the Black Spaniel mix. That's that same, this is another interaction. Now she barked more there, right? And is a little bit more intense. Doesn't seem warranted from just the Black Spaniel, who seems benign. I'm not filming. However, is she hyper-focused? Has she not looked away? Is she singly escalating in her progression? No. She did some barking. She may have some on-leash barking issues? My guess, probably not. As it turns out, she doesn't in her home. So here they are meeting. Again, are they communicating? Yes, absolutely. Are they obsessed? No. And again, like most bitches, they are more concerned with who gets to own the human. And our Prancer dog, the dark brown one, is very consistent. Right now we've seen her, she's a little rude and intrusive. This dog seems much more welcoming about it. This dog's more playful and rough and tumble. Okay, so again, both those dogs, those are very normal. That's nice communication. Now this is the lighter brown dog that you saw at first. So now she's the first dog in the room and we're looking at her. And again, she sees the other dog and looks at people. Oh, that's very nice. And she's going to be looking at, again, I'm not filming, a 5-year-old pit bull kind of maybe Dalmatian or something mix. And again, is she hyper-focused on the other dog? Does she look completely comfortable? No. So, I think I was sitting because I was tired and it was the end of a really long day. It's not great. You should be standing, but I think I'd had it. So this dog seems a little uncomfortable. Part of the problem is this is a young dog, the brown one, maybe 10 months old. She's in the room first, and she's also been in the room a couple of other times. So she's being sort of set up to be the resident dog and of a slightly higher status and position than the dog that's going to come in. The dog that's coming in is older and stronger and more dominant and tougher. And so I think that, for one, makes the brown dog uncomfortable. She didn't want that kind of sort of authority that being in the room first gave her. Not only that, but this white dog is very intrusive. I'm not filming, just turn your head. Now, hang on, I'm going to go back. It's the vertigo shot. One of the things to look for is, I think particularly with bitches, is they often don't want other dogs to come near their owners. And they get, we call it snarky. They get a little snarky. And actually I call it, they have the disease snarkolepsy. And it's likely that this brown dog's going to get it, because what she does is basically sort of acts like I'm her resource. I'm her pig's ear. And
so are you supposed to ignore her?
I'm supposed to ignore, I'm supposed to be standing, but I'm not, okay? And this dog is much stronger and more powerful. Prancer, the brown dog, ends up freezing for a brief second to warn the white dog off, and gives her a look, and the white dog backs off for a second, sniffs her butt, and we can't really see because we're ready to vomit, and then tries to push her way in to get the resource. So the white dog's pushy. Neither dog is aggressive. Neither dog is a bad dog. And just by sort of how they are communicating with each other. What you also have to understand is dogs often, the most common reason for a dog fight in a home is arguing or aggression over the greatest resource, which is almost always the human, the owner. Doorways are the level of that. And it's one of the things to look for. Like if you look at that same light brown dog, Vixen, we've now seen her with a few dogs. We know she's not aggressive, not going to harm anyone. She's fairly young. So she gets to meet Jolly. You remember Jolly? Because we know that she's not going to traumatize Jolly And certainly it'd be hard to traumatize him because he's a little weasel. And he immediately goes, this is a complete stranger to both dogs. But she's sitting on the couch, so he goes to her and he says, you are my favorite person in the whole world. And Prancer says, well, wait a second, I'm a little older here, and I was in the room first, and I think this is my favorite person. And Jolly's like, no, my person. Out of my way. That's my, out of my, oh, damn, oh, this is an outrage. I better not. I'll go over here. And he uses his little charming submissive behaviors to ingratiate himself with her, and then he goes and gets his person. I still don't think, even if, let's say, somebody owned the brown dog and was thinking of adopting Jolly, I would do the adoption. Particularly if the brown dog, knowing she's the resident dog, because she's going to, in her home, that puppy comes in, she's going to be saying to him, like, no, that's my owner. No, that's my water bowl. No, you can't actually eat today. No, you can't have any water today. And it'll probably work out. And Jolly uses charm and guile, right? He doesn't get stiff, and he's young, but still, it looks like they'd get along. Yes? How do you resolve it if it's a pig's ear as opposed to a person? In the case of two dogs, there's a couple of things that you can do. I don't really care if dogs resource guard from each other. I only care if they do it to a human. So if it was a husband sitting with this dog and the wife came over to give the husband a peck on the cheek and the dog did that, I would say it's a more serious, although no one's really showing aggressive, but it was pretty firm. And how to cure it is a whole huge, giant topic. The worst, most unresolvable problems in a home between dogs are same sex, same age, same size. And if you have same sex, same size, same age, already fighting in a home, those are the hardest to resolve. Females even harder than males to resolve, because females tend to fight more bloody than males. However, that doesn't mean that adopting a female dog to somebody with a female dog, same size, is going to turn into a bad situation. It only means that the hardest thing to fix in a home where there's an already established problem is that. If there were two female dogs and the resident dog, like this brown one, clearly covets the owner, and the owner is a very important resource, and the dog, doesn't let any of the other dogs in, and they're going to adopt this second dog that also wants to covet an owner. If there were two females, or the little jolly little puppy were a little older, I might hesitate a little more. And the only reason is I'm thinking both dogs are going to vie to be the apple of the owner's eye. And when you have two dogs vying for apple of the eye position, and they're going to be same sex, same age, or same size, then you have a higher potential for problem in that home. It's not to say I wouldn't do it, but there may be more risk associated with it. Males and females in general, I think probably are less apt to get into horrible fights. Same sex seems to be bad, but boy, just a male and a female together doesn't necessarily assume they're going to be fine at all. God bless you. Again, it's hard. I wish I could give you some really good exact formulas, but I don't have them. This is a 5-year-old female boxer pit, and here's the situation. The dog was surrendered to us for an evaluation. She came from a home, and it was a boyfriend-girlfriend who had just moved in together. This is the girlfriend's dog. They adopted her from a no-kill shelter kind of near us. The dog had been there for about 3 years. They've had her a couple of years, or she's had her a couple of years. Fairly recently moved in with her boyfriend, who had adopted a male pit bull mix from my shelter about 10 years ago. So he has an older male pit whom he loves. They both love. And she moves in with this dog, whom she loves. And they move in together, and this dog has now attacked the male pit bull twice, causing damage. And so they realized it was serious. They realized after the second attack they can't keep both dogs. It's not fair to either one. And their question is this dog just aggressive with their male dog, and could she be fine either in a no-dog household or with a different dog, or is she truly dog aggressive? And so that's why she's here. This is her dog-to-dog test. So I'm going to let you watch it. It's quick. And you let me know if you think she could then be placed in a home with either no dogs or a different dog and is likely to be okay, or whether is she dog aggressive. The dog's not in the room yet. You'll know when the dog arrives. So, what do you tell the people?
No.
No what? So she's not going to be good in a household with another dog. It's not just their dog. Any dog. And then what you're going to tell them? I don't think she either had her around other dogs. I don't remember the details. She may not have had her a couple of years. Let's take a look at the dog in slow motion. So it's a slightly smaller screen. Watch this.
Wow.
Does she want to play? To an owner who would always be behind her, they would think she just wants to play. So they may have lived with her and walked her around other dogs, and they might have just like manhandled her around them and said, oh, she's too rough or whatever. And she'll probably play with some dogs. She's probably not just going to kill every other dog, but she's quite dangerous with dogs. Yeah, she said she feels bad for the dog that was living with her. In there with her. Well, yeah, let me just say the dog that I chose to subject her to was a 1-year-old Siberian Border Collie mix who I was hoping would be frightened, and he wasn't. He was like, bring her on, baby. Watch. Hang on. Bring her on. He is suicidal. Yeah. He loved it. We're like, damn, we still haven't found something that will intimidate Nomad. This was a dog that we placed. He was a level 3 dog. He lives with a female dog who's quite tough, and he's fine with her, but he can't greet other dogs in the street. It chooses you as a resource against another human. So in a household, the dog won't let the husband in bed after he gets up to pee in the middle of the night.
Yeah, or
You hire a behaviorist to come in and help you, show you how to modify the behavior and manage. If one dog, if you're testing a dog, and let's say you're testing it and there's somebody else in the room writing down the notes, and the dog tends to, stand in front of or claim one person as a resource, it's not a huge deal. If he's using aggression to do it, it's a big deal. But most dogs consider their human as a resource to a certain degree. I probably can't answer if she's asking about specific, like the dog's pushing into her body. I probably can't answer sort of a specific question like that, except that I would say if something concerns you and you're like, what is that? Then you say it's gray area. Hold the dog another couple days, test it again. The more you can find out about the dogs, the better you can make a placement. You can find a much better home for the dog. And there are some dogs that if you get it right the first time, good, and if you don't get it right the first time, you're not going to be able to find another home for them. And so it's worth it to, you know, admit, you might say, I can't put my finger on it, but this dog, I'm a little uncomfortable right now. Could we just try something else with this dog, or could we hold him another day and put him in somebody's office so we can see more of what he's really like? All that is fine to do. Yes. Do I have a lot of dog parks in my area? Yeah. Yeah. I just wrote a booklet on dog parks, and is your dog right for the dog park? I have to say I've been filming dog parks in different parts of this country, and I filmed one while I was in Belgium, it was Bruges, and it was all grass, wrought iron fence around it, beautiful quiet neighborhood, and I was there for like a 3-day weekend workshop. So got my video camera as soon as I was done, and I go there, I think it was a Friday evening. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so cool. Belgium, their dog park, completely empty. Completely empty, not a bloody dog around. So I'm like, oh, this is so disappointing. So I'm like, I'm going to go back. Tomorrow is Saturday. I'm going to go back with my camera. Come back the next day, completely empty. So I'm like, well, I'm going to wait. And finally, this man comes down the block with his Labrador, walks right on past. I'm like, this is a bust. Then, because some of my friends are now waiting with me, my American dog trainer friends were all over there for a conference, and all of a sudden, a family, mother and a father, they're each on a bicycle. Their 2 kids, each on a bicycle. They bicycle past with their 2 border collies off leash, just biking with them. And they go on by. And my friend turns to me and she goes, that's why there's no one at the dog park. Because everyone in Europe is exercising with their dogs. You know? I'm like, oh. So I filmed the family as they rode their bikes past. I'm like, that's why these dog parks are empty. The dog parks in New York City are an absolute bloody nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Every single time, no matter what the time, I go there with my camera, something hideous happens. My housemate Peter, he meets with a friend who's from Brooklyn. They meet in Manhattan. They're like, let's go to that Union Square dog park. It's fun to watch the dogs. So Peter's like, well, all right. And so she goes, let's go. And they sit on a bench outside. And she goes, isn't this beautiful how they all play together? And Peter's like, I don't know a lot about dogs, but I'm not sure this is so beautiful. And I'm not really sure they're playing. A fight erupts. Dog gets hurt. 2 owners nearly have a knockdown, drag-out fight. This is just like, oh, they happened to drop in on this particular day. New York City dog parks are really a nightmare. They're too small and they're too crowded. And there's too many benches in them, so owners don't interact with their dogs at all. I've seen 2 dog parks where I think it works. One of them was in Chicago. It was right on the lake. And the reason why I thought it worked was it was very large. At first I couldn't figure out why it worked, because it wasn't that the dogs were so nice. There were some very not nice dogs in there. So I was like, well, it's not working because the dogs are all great. Why is it working? And first of all, it's all sand. And so none of the dogs can get much of a purchase, or really, they can't get a lot of speed. And one of the deadliest things in a group of dogs is when they start playing chase and they pick up a lot of speed and then it turns into a predatory attack. So they weren't able to do that. So the dogs get twice as much exercise running on the sand. That was the first good thing. The second good thing is there was like a group of dogs swimming and playing and a group of dogs on the sand on the other side. And then I was like, why is this so much better than in New York? And I was like, well, like their owners interacting with their dogs, throwing balls and playing and calling their dogs, and I'm like, why is that? And I was like, oh, there's no place to sit. And in New York, it's all benches. And people go in there with their Starbucks and they're on the cell phone. And you can't, I play a game where in the footage I'm like, match the dog to the owner. No one can do it. You couldn't really do it in Chicago either, except for a couple of them. But it worked. It was also a lot emptier. And the only other dog park I went to where I thought it really worked was in Salt Lake City. And the dog park was unfenced. It had to be over 100 acres. And you have to hike down this dirt road for about half a mile straight down, and there's pockets of wilderness on either side. And because it's such a long hike to get down to the bottom area where some of the dogs are, people are moving. And there's really no place to sit. It's more like a hiking experience, and everyone's out there alone in the wilderness playing with their dogs. And I even took my 2 dogs in there. 2 dogs that are not necessarily good with other dogs. They're not fighters, but one is the humper and the other one is the defensive one. And they were fine, because I just called them off. The other dogs ignored them, and we just went on our hike. So that worked. It's impractical, right? You can't do that unless you have hundreds of acres. And the only other dog park that I ever let one of my dogs in was up in Albany, New York. And that was because there was 1 dog in it, and it was huge. It was a Labrador playing ball with his owner. So I'm not a huge proponent of dog parks. I'm not a huge proponent of dog play for long periods of time without human interruption. I think it can cause a lot more problems than it can help. But there are dog parks that do work. I want to talk a little bit about play before I know we have our 2 dogs. Maybe we should do them and then do play. It's red. No, this isn't a Bees and Hound lab mix. Oh. Here, sweetie. Can you see well enough if I'm down there, Alta? Okay. Oh, she's looking at herself. All right, so just hang on 2 seconds. And I don't know her at all, so let's take a look. She's a female. Doesn't seem like she's had a heat cycle yet. She seems young and, okay. You ready? Is this very exciting and scary? Okay. All right, hang on. Okay, so this is dog number 1. Do we know how old she is? 7 months, 8 months? Okay. And dog number 2 is also a female. Great. And what's that? I haven't temperament tested them. And are you okay? Do you feel okay if you just bring your dog up and you're going to stand? Hi, Lovey. You're going to, come up to where the carpet changes in the middle. Great. Keep walking. Stop right there. Perfect. And good. So now both dogs have looked at each other. They're staring. That one looked away first to cough. Now this one wants to get on the stage. Is that interesting? I couldn't get her on the stage before. So why might that be? Why might that be? She might want to be higher. We don't know, but she certainly got there. Her arousal level spiked, and she had to grab something in her mouth, which is interesting. So you're going to stay where you are. What I'd like you to do, plant your feet so you're sideways, because I'm going to root you down, and then hold both hands where you have the leash together, and just hold them at your stomach, and don't let them leave your stomach. All I'm trying to do is basically tether the dog to that spot. That's all I'm having her do. I want to be able to, I'm going to bring my dog closer or farther, and I want her dog to stay there. So I'm going to bring my dog forward. That dog stays sideways and is not straining. Now, as soon as she turned her head, this one went away immediately, which I think says more about that dog than this dog, but I'm not sure. I don't know either of them. So unless I saw them meeting multiple dogs, I really wouldn't know. I think it's fine when dogs try to ignore each other, but of course I want them to interact because they're the only 2 dogs here.
You got a distraction of food right behind you.
That's so true. That's all right. I'm wondering, is there somebody, Mayor, where are you? Would you go to my car and get one of my dogs? I am parked. It's a dark blue Nissan Pathfinder. And it's, if you walk out the front door, it's at the end of this sort of first row. It's got a big black cargo box on it. And Hop Sing is, good. Okay, so what,
These two dogs, have they met each other before?
have they met each other?
Well, they've been hanging out downstairs.
They've been
on their
hanging
way.
out downstairs. And had they met before you brought them here?
No.
Okay, so they hadn't met, but they've been hanging out downstairs together. And so I don't know. So I don't really know either dog. And it wasn't just that nothing happened. A couple things happened. One is my dog got more excited, jumped on the stage, grabbed a part of the stage. So does that mean anything? Who knows? Except it was there. That dog seemingly, had a very low response, although her pupils are quite dilated. However, when she looked at this one backed off immediately and was a very powerful look. Didn't seem very powerful to me, but this dog responded as if it was powerful. So I don't know either dog. So can we put her, hide her somewhere in the mixed? You're full of trouble. And you'll bring her back there. And the dog that I sent Mare to go out and get is a 9-year-old neutered male. So bring her and hide her back there, because I'll have her meet the male dog separately. And I'll have this one meet... except she notices the other dog leaving, right? And stares at her. So could it mean something? Something. It may mean nothing, but I want to observe it. That's you. Question.
Can I just say, when we had him out in the lobby,
Yeah.
while we were waiting, she's quite, the one you have is quite rambunctious.
The one that I have is quite rambunctious, yes?
She wanted to jump on the other one.
Yes.
The other one really wasn't interested in that and kind of gave her a hard stare like,
Yes.
chill out. She immediately laid right down.
Okay, good. So they were communicating sort of what they were doing here. My question is this dog that responsive always to another dog, or is she that responsive because that dog is incredibly powerful? I have no idea. I'd have to have them each meet multiple dogs. They're both bull breeds, so I'd want to evaluate them seriously. I would not take anything. I'm not just going to go, oh, I didn't see anything. No, I really want to see these dogs with other dogs. So the dog that Mare is hopefully going to successfully bring in is a 9-year-old neutered male. He was neutered at 5 months. He is incredibly high-ranking with other dogs. He's never had a fight, but I bet he would have in some other situations. He's not aggressive. He's not looking for a fight. He does not back down. He's a humper, and his name is Hop Sing, but my friends call him Hump Jump. And he urinates as high as he can. Like if you saw his urine stream on a tree, you'd be like, wow, that dog's like 5 feet tall. And he poop marks. So he lifts his leg as if he's about to pee and then turns around. Were you successful, Mare? Great. And Mare, you're going to come up and keep walking this way until I tell you to stop. Then you plant your feet, and then we might come forward. Okay, so there's the humper. Healing beautifully because I've taught him to walk well on leash really successfully. Good. So now my dog's staring. You stop right there. Now, the thing about Hop Sing is he's suicidal. The dog could be absolutely ready and able to kill him, and he wouldn't care. So don't look at him for a lot of good communication. He's not great to test dogs with. So what has my dog done? What did you hear? One high-pitched squeak. She's been more aroused by the new dog. Her tail's higher than with the first female. Hop Sing has looked and looked away, looked and looked away. She's looked away a few times. So Mare, we're going to come forward and a little bit. And so second time she's gotten up on the stage. Good, bring your dog a little closer. Perfect, good handling. Who wants to hump? He's coming over, touching her. He's quite dominant. That's who he is. He's thinking should I mount her or not? Is what thought process. He thinks perhaps he would like to mount her, but he's not sure if it's such a good idea. He's thinking maybe he should just lift his leg on the screen as opposed to mount her, which might give you the same. Great, and then you can pull him off. Oh, she liked that. Woo! She did, right? She goes, I love a dominant male. Ooh, delightful. He's like, baby, let me clasp you again so I won't let go. All right, you just stay on that side, good. Can you see? Can you not see? I can't tell because I can't look.
I just need to move obscene cameras back a little bit to the dog.
All right, can you see now? I can't tell if anyone can
I
see.
can if you can. There you go. You got it.
Yeah? I like some of the things I'm seeing in this annoying dog. In terms of her communication with other dogs, she arouses fairly quickly. She's a little intense, but she seems to communicate. I think she's pretty powerful. Also a little, sometimes, I think she backs off pretty easily. Okay, come on back down. Go up to Hop. He anal swiped her. Did you see that? He did? He got his anus on her? That's my boy. Oh, Papa, please. Please, Pop. Oh, she's found the popcorn. She's got return written all over her, right? They're like, oh, my God, we didn't think it'd be this much work to have a dog. She'd be into everything. I know. Come here. Pop, you want to rape her? Here she is. He says, yes. I think I'd like to.
Now, Sue, after 2 encounters, do you still keep passing her with other dogs?
No, I'm just lingering up here. I mean, I would look at her with some other dogs. Thank you. No, she loved it again. Woo, she says. Awesome. I'd have slapped you, silly boy. Okay, so now he disciplined her, and her tail came up even higher. And one of the things you have to notice about her, and it's not uncommon in the bull breeds, she's aroused by discipline, right? She got more and more excited the harder and, the more that happened. And now she's like, so much fun. Okay, you stay. Let me switch. Where is the other bull breed? Great. I'm going to put whatever her name is back. And great. And I'll take the other one. Does she have a name?
Sindel.
Sindel. Cute. Cute. Okay, so you stay there with Hop Sing, and you stay right there. We'll take a look at them. Same stare she had with the first dog. She sort of came right out. It looked sort of accidental, but it was quite forward. He went down. What does that mean? I don't know. He's either in a predatory stalk or he's lowering himself. She looked just a little for a second, a little predatory, just for a second, and then it went. Now, she scares me a little. She, now, 1, 2, 3, pull her dogs away. She started freezing, and you could sort of feel it more than look at it. Her hair went up, and she froze, and there seemed to be something about to explode. And poor Mare.
I'm sorry.
It'll be on that DVD forever now. So all your friends at work, or you said like, oh no, I've got the flu, I can't come to work on Monday. Some of the things about this dog. She came up. She seemed sort of cautious, and then came forward in a very odd frontal forward way, and immediately stared at him. It looked almost accidental, but it was very powerful. And then I thought, I don't think it's accidental because you ended up right there when she first came out. I think she's gotten more of a response from him than the first dog in terms of he's changing his behavior depending on what the other dog does. However, that could just be because it's the second dog. We don't know that. I don't know how to say this in scientific terms, but to me this dog holds everything on the inside, and the other dog kept it on the outside a little bit more, right? She's like, shh, this is who I am. I'm a little crazy. I gotta chew. I gotta bite. I gotta get up high. I'd like to be really up high. This is really clear. And she is keeping secrets. And there was a certain amount of tension that developed that I didn't want to see where it was going to go. What you all about, huh? What are you all about? Do the dogs pick up on our tension? I'm sure. What are you going to do about it? Oh, Mary, just let them together. I don't know what time's about. It's fun. Yes, but I have to say, I wasn't feeling tense until I responded to her behavior, not she was responding to mine. I can tell you that. She is standing in front of me. She is. She has both a very dilated eye and a hard eye, and she acts a little fearful. But she's not really acting fearful. Does she know you? Oh, okay, she does. Okay, but do you know her from the shelter? No. Okay. Again, so she does some stuff that seems a little fearful and some stuff that seems very forceful. What? Do you know her? You know her? What are you all about? Like that. She's a little worried she's not interacting with me, so why make direct eye contact with me right when I'm down here? If you're fearful, why are you really just staring at me at that moment? Little inconsistencies, right? I know you have a name tag in your face. Cutie girl. Cutie girl. Well, if I were in the shelter, I would have stopped with this one dog and I would have tested her with a few more. But I don't have a few more dogs.
I mean, do you feel she's a gray area right now?
Yeah, yeah. Dog stuff, I wouldn't even so much gray area hers, I would say I really want to see her with more dogs. I have a couple of concerns about she has shown a little bit of a tendency to start staring when she gets worried. And it says to me sometimes as sometimes dogs, and I have no idea, I've never seen her in her place where she's comfortable. This is obviously not a normal place to take a dog. Although my dogs are kind of used to it at this point. But she has a tendency to seek out and stare and fixate. And a lot of times dogs who are fearful who do that, if they're not interrupted, will make all the wrong choices. So they'll stare and they'll be like, are you a threat to me? Should I be worried about you? And if the person looks back and stares back, often they'll start growling, snort, whatever. All I'm saying is that type of dog takes a much more experienced handler and one who needs to micromanage the dog. And those are some of my concerns. But I've not evaluated her. I don't see that. She's not a relaxed dog here. But I don't see much more than that. Okay, Hop, come here. I have a present for you. She avoids that same thing. Her tail comes up. Pull away. I won't do it.
There was a little
curl, and then she muscles up, and then she turned to me that time and pushed me in the thigh. I don't know what that was for, except There was a lip twitch. There was a lot of, she comes up to some sort of threshold there. And so I would be concerned, but I'm here and I have a limited number of dogs and she's intriguing. And it says a lot to me if I don't want my own dog who can hold his own. I mean, he's had dog look at him and absolutely would kill him if they got loose, and he's like... So I don't worry about scaring him. If anything, I think this has made 9 years of testing dogs has made him into a monster. Like, but she's holding it in. I feel like when she goes, she's going to explode. But there's something very powerful about her. She stiffens, she muscles up, right? Her head came up, her tail comes right up, and then she gets very still. And it doesn't look like she's communicating. It looks like she's making decisions for him. And she doesn't feel safe. And I thought it was interesting that she turned around and pushed me here. I thought that was meaningful and weird. And so, I mean, is she lunging and seeking out other dogs when she's on leash? No. However, yeah. No, she seems stressed and she looks like she's anxiously trying to get to whoever she bonded to. Was it you? Did she bond to you?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Back a little bit and downstairs. She was very, very sweet to a point where she would close her eyes, her ears went back. She was very...
Okay. Well, she's not coping well with the environment, which is fine. Most dogs don't have to go to hotels. And do I think the on-leash thing has anything to do with it? Sure. What's your choice? It's going to be on leash most of the time, as well it should be. She's not straining to the point where she's building arousal and frustration, which is where you get a much more skewed look of the dog. That's not her issue at all. Huh, baby? Maybe you have to poop, right? Maybe you have to poop. So the shelter, what's their story? What do you...
I believe she was an owner release.
You'll have to repeat some.
That she was an owner release, okay, so an owner surrender. How long has she been there? About a month. And the other dog? That one was a stray. And this was an owner release. Do you know why they surrendered her? Okay. And how did you choose these two dogs to bring today?
Very quickly.
That's fine. That's fine. I said you can't choose wrong. Any two dogs will teach you something. I said, however, if there's one that they act differently, like one who's more withdrawn, one that's more boisterous, and that's what we got. We feel like you get a better evaluation, like doing it at the end of the test after the other evaluation. Yeah, because if the dog's not going to pass every other part of it, the dog-to-dog testing takes a lot longer because you can't just do one dog. You have to do a few, and somebody's got to go get and handle that dog, and then you got to meet, and it's always harder because there's two dogs communicating. So yeah, because not all dogs pass, and if they're not going to pass, I'm not going to bother to go on to dog testing. I don't mean to sound ruthless, but it's just so many dogs you can assess. There's a little staring again. These are the things that I think about, fixated. So, okay, you all right? You ready to go? Ready to go? You want to get out of this hellhole? This hellhole? Okay. All right, let me just bring out Boisterous Girl one more time with Hop Sing. And bring her here. Good girl. She's like, now, I'll play with you now. I'll play with you now. Hang on. No, don't buy those things. All right, here we come. You bring Hop Sing up. She's like, look, my boyfriend. I'm going to frontally face him, and I'm going to stalk and pounce. Here I go. Boom. Oh, she said, but I wasn't quite sure what he wanted.
Oh, she knows.
She's like, I'm ready for you. Oh, her tail came up high on that one. Oh, Thank you. She's like, I think I'm going to jump up. Oh, and buy some popcorn. So let's say a family comes in, they want to adopt her, and they are nurses, and they work 12-hour shifts 3 days a week. And when they work 12 hours, thanks, Mir, they want to take, they're going to send her to a really good daycare. Do you do the adoption?
Yes,
Yes. Defend your position.
because she's gonna get all the dog interaction she needs and the exercise she needs while they're there, and she's not sitting at home being a terrier.
Okay, so she says yes because she'd get all the dog interaction she'd need, and she's not sitting at home being a terrier.
No, she looks pretty relaxed to me. When he wants to mount her, her response is to play. It's not to get aggressive. When he leaves, her mouth is still relaxed.
I wouldn't say she's relaxed. I would say she's quite intense. She asked about her being relaxed, or said that she seems relaxed, but she's really saying that she seems to be communicating with Hop Sing and bouncing herself off of his interactions. But when does she get most stimulated? When he either mounts her or disciplines her a little bit. So what's going to happen at daycare? Depends on who they put her with. Well, let's say they put her with a dog that sets limits. She'll get aroused. And let's say they put her with a sort of softer dog that she starts to bully. I personally think she'd be a really bad candidate for a dog park or daycare. And part of the problem is I think she gets very aroused. It's quite bull breedish, and if it's all you see, to you it's like she was perfect. But she's fairly intense. She does stare at him. She gets aroused really quickly. That's you. I'm sorry. I'm talking about you. I think she could, with that level of a spike in arousal and wanting to play and kind of, she likes the scary roller coaster ride, right? She likes the scary movie. I think within a few trips to daycare, she'd be obsessed with other dogs. And I think she'd be pretty out of control. I also think her out-of-control arousal levels could trigger into a fight. Not like a pit fight, but a fight, a spat. And I think she'd probably be kicked out of daycare, but quick. If she'd even be let in, because she's a pit.
What about a household with other females?
What a household with other females? Boo. I'd have to look at her more. I don't think I'd place her with another dog. I think an owner's going to have enough trouble with her. Not bad trouble, but I mean, I haven't seen her very much, but she gets into everything. She's a flaming adolescent. She's strong. And my guess is somebody's going to need to put 100% of their energy into her. And to put her with another dog, I'm not convinced she would be good. That's what I think. Right? Don't go to my face. Okay, so let's... we'll put them away. How many pits are in your shelter? What percentage of the dogs in the shelter are pits? 60%? Yeah. Some of our northeastern shelters are 70% or greater. Pits and pit mixes.
That's what we usually want.
That's what you guys are, yeah. Yeah. Yep. It's hard. They don't kennel well.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. And they're often they're longer, yeah. Yes. Like what bad behaviors do they practice? And I'll repeat it. So they have lots of pits, and they're hard to maintain at a shelter. They have to tie them out to the kennels when they clean the run, and then they'll fence fight. So I mean, every time they practice that, they're becoming a worse dog. And so your job is to try and, if they're adoptable to begin with, to find them a home before they engage in those behaviors. They will deteriorate, and those type of kennel behaviors are contagious. So if she's not lunging, but she's next to a dog who lunges at other dogs, within a few days this dog will start lunging at other dogs when they go by. She already has an easy arousal. It goes from 0 to 100 at the drop of a hat, which isn't a surprise in the bull breeds, but she arouses very quickly, which means in the shelter she's going to arouse very quickly. You know, what do I suggest? It's a dilemma. But I would also suggest, I mean, we place pit bulls, but we place ambassadors for the breed. We'll transfer them in, but they have to be, they can't have any, any issues. Because they're going to stay longer, harder to get people to adopt them out. They don't kennel well. They don't necessarily play well with other dogs.
So is this arousal level not an ambassador?
Is this arousal level not an ambassador? I'd have to evaluate her. I mean, I'd have to put her back in the kennel and take her out. I'd like to look at her sociability. I've done it backwards. All I've seen, I'm not sure it's fair to now go, well, why is she not being social? She's been out with another dog and allowed to interact with them. But I would look at her. Neither of the dogs that you've brought me are easy to adopt out, and neither should probably go with kids. Just eyeballing them. So the boxer pit, the brindle dog that I evaluated that was really dog aggressive, he was saying that I had said that she was from a no-kill shelter and she'd been there for years. So could she have learned behavior there that made her much worse? Sure. But in the end, as a 5-year-old dog, that's the end product. Nothing I can do about it. I'm sure, however she started out, 3 years it was not a nice shelter that she came from, I know that. I bet she practiced dog aggression 24 hours a day, or every time she wasn't sleeping. The arousal levels in that shelter are above and beyond inhumane. It's a horrible place for a dog. So she was there for 3 years. I don't know what she started out like. She'd been in a home long enough to at least have some of that calm down if it could. But no, but at that point it doesn't matter. She's learned enough of it. For 3 years you can make some major headway in bad directions with a dog. 3 years in a kennel, especially a pit type. So yeah, look, she's sleeping.
At your shelter, how long would you keep an animal up for adoption?
How long would we keep an animal up for adoption? If it was adoptable to begin with, we would keep it as long as if it was adoptable, and as long as we could make sure it was a better dog every single day. And that requires training every day and a reevaluation. We usually reevaluate once a month. A dog who's been there a month has been there a long time and is getting passed up by the public. And that usually means that they're above average difficult for people. The most adoptable dogs get scooped up the quickest by the public, the softest, sweetest ones. And then it's a bad cycle. The longer they stay there, the more aroused they get, the harder they look, the less the public wants them, and they kind of go stale, right? So you're fighting against the ill effects of a kennel every single day. It's not just, oh, well, it's an adoptable dog, let's keep it. What if after 2 months it's spinning in its cage? So we have a hard job, and I think it's even harder with the pits because they don't kennel well. They're easily frustrated. So they've seen an escalation in the sort of non-aggressive dogs coming in. Have either of these dogs been adopted and returned at all? No. Okay. Good.
What do you do about fence fighting?
What do you do about fence fighting? We don't do behavior modification. We would do 100% management. You cannot have them fence fight. So you either move the dogs around, cover the crates, or cover the kennels, put something between them. Move the dog that's a fence fighter in his kennel to a kennel that has no other passing dogs. Get him out of the kennel, put him in a crate in somebody's office, and he gets leash walked or he remains in an office where he can't practice the behavior. Lunging at other dogs is a horrible behavior. Shouldn't be practiced. Is that growling? Honey, could you wake up? I know this is really stressful for you to be in this room on a stage with all these people. Sweetheart? Honey? Okay. She's very comfortable now. Come on. I know you're having a great day, huh? A great day. Oh, great day. Oh, we're having a big fun day. It's a good life. She's very tense, just like the other dog. All right, now careful, careful. Very cute. Yes, you can, or you can sit with him, or if he's tethered, he's awfully good, because when I got him, he had been tethered for 5 months on a tree. So he's great on a tether.
He's getting a nice body rub.
Okay, good, because he's shedding. Okay, Papa, I'm sorry. Mom's bait dog. Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so I'm not convinced I can find it easily. Oh, it is right here. Fantastic. Okay, so these are a couple things in terms of kenneling more than one dog. These are the two puppies that are left. That a full litter had come in. These are the only two left, and so they're probably 14, 15 weeks, and they're really, because they've been there since, I'm assuming since they were about 8 weeks old, they really need to be separated. They need to not be isolated, but they need to start spending time away from each other, or any sort of temperament characteristic will be exaggerated. If there's one of them's fearful and one of them's pushy, they'll be grossly fearful and grossly pushy, and they need to start bonding to people a lot. So when you have a litter of puppies and a couple of puppies go stale and they stay there, you need to get your volunteers to descend on them and really spend a lot of time playing one-on-one with each puppy and taking each one out, like in the car to the bank or to the ice cream store. Those puppies need to get out with a human, without each other, so they learn how to cope with being alone and being with a human. Very important when you have puppies. So the 3 puppies that are in this kennel run I don't think are related, but I know why they put them together. And the big brown one is a hog, right? No one else can go see the adopters. He's like, no, get out of my way. Out of my way. I want all the adopters, right? And he squishes the little one away. I think it'll work in the little one's favor, because I think everyone will feel sorry for him and adopt him. But can you see how he's a bully? And he shovels them out of the way. Okay, so here are those same 2 puppies. And this one is I think it's a male, and this one's a female. And he seems quite sort of bold and pushy and sort of dominant. But watch what happens. I send my friend in there. They're cute, aren't they? Very cute. And again, they sort of do everything together, which means they're not learning how to do anything by themselves, which is not a good thing. And they may have trouble being left alone. They really need work. So hang on, my friend's coming. What's that? What'd you say? Sorry. Oh, that's okay. She is. There she is. I'm like, go in. And it was a lot harder to get in than we thought. Shmush. Okay, so she goes in. That's the male. And this is the female. He's actually afraid of her. And he can only interact with her through his litter mate. And so he, who seems to be more dominant and confident when no one's in there, actually can't really cope well without. And she was very social, the female. And he kept putting his teeth on her and couldn't really, he didn't respond that normally. Because then he got really close and he was a little pushy. He doesn't know. I think he gets so much confidence from his litter mate that he doesn't know what to do when he's on his own with a human. And so these puppies are at a stage where they really need to be separated, where there's too much dog-to-dog interaction. However, if they were both alone all the time and they didn't have a lot of human interaction, they'd deteriorate for other reasons. So you have to find a balance. I'm not sure. They're like somewhere between 3 and 4 months, probably closer to 4 months. And it's a common thing that starts to happen when puppies are together too long. Okay, now, a couple of other things about kennel mates. Who are these? Okay, here's the outside view of the monkeys. I call them the monkeys, the two brown dogs. And there's, again, nothing really seriously wrong with what's going on, but you want to look for sort of bullying. When you're in a kennel, your biggest prize is the adopter, right? The person who comes to the front of the kennel to visit. That's your big chance to get adopted. You know, it's an important thing. Now let me just say, until these two are adopted, no one's going to look at the black puppy. No one's going to look at him. And he's probably really nice, okay? Because I wasn't even looking at him. Isn't that mean? Look, do you see him knock his little brother away? He's like, out of my way, Junior. Out of my way. I said, out of my way. Pick me. I'm cute. Damn it. No. Me. And luckily he started fence fighting, so he had half a chance. But poor little black dog, probably really sweet and lives with a monster. These two were okay together. The wire-haired one was much pushier, and it was hard for the shorter-haired one. They're unrelated. Harder for her to come and greet people. So again, there's often fallout from too much dog interaction, and there's fallout from no dog interaction, depending on the dog, okay? And one of the things that I was talking about with the doubling them up, often the temperament characteristics will be exaggerated, and your bully dog sometimes turns into much more of a bully, and your fearful dog can turn into much more of a fearful dog. This is sibling play. I don't think, where did that go? I don't think, this is a New York City dog park. I don't think these dogs are actual siblings. I think one belongs to one and one belongs to the other. Girlfriend, boyfriend. Is this healthy play? Why not? They're not fighting. There's no bloodshed. Should we watch it in slow motion? Let's watch it in slow motion. It's not play. You cannot use damage as your barometer of whether something is safe or not, aggression or not. These are clamping down, just like with the puppies. It wasn't mouthing when they were clamping down, snapping the jaws shut, thrashing, pulling, tugging. And again, the level of arousal, it's all just uninterrupted play. And what they're practicing, there's two young dogs, they're practicing how to kill other dogs. And I mean it seriously. It's not just because they're pits, they're both powerful and muscular, and it's like Lord of the Flies. And it's just not, they're shaking, did you see the thrashing? And there's snarling, if you slow it down. Snarling is not in a play sequence. That's a full mouth, inguinal bite. So there was no damage. You see this guy, how he's snarling? That's defensive play. That's not play, actually. I don't think this is play at all. I think this is how do we practice to kill something.
And the guy sitting on the bench is just smiling.
Everyone's sitting on the bench talking on their cell phones and drinking their Starbucks, and I don't even know how many of these people actually own any of these dogs. So anyway, that kind of thing is quite serious and dangerous.
Bernice sitting watching and getting up and moving.
I know, the Bernese Mountain Dog's a bit horrified. There are other dogs that are begging their owners to leave the park. They're like leaping up at their owners, get me out of here, please get me out of here. And the owners are, like, oh, this is your time to be a dog. Go enjoy yourself. It's beautiful. I'll be on the phone. It's a nightmare. An absolute nightmare. All right, so what are some of the components of play? Let's say you want to set up a play group. Tell me, how do you know it's play?
Give and take.
Bows, okay. Give and take, what does that mean? What does it look like?
Switch roles.
They switch roles? But sometimes it's fine, they don't switch roles, and it still seems fine, right? Why is that? How do you know they're comfortable? What would they look like if they were comfortable? She said they would ignore each other. I think they would interrupt each other. It would self-interrupt, wouldn't it? And when it interrupted, I think the definition of each dog's having fun they would both want to re-engage. And one of the things about healthy play is arousal levels go up, and then there's an interruption, and then they drop back down, and then they go up, and then they go back down. It's up and down and up and down. So let's watch. These are two female dogs. One is Prancer, and the other one's Candy Corn, whom you've not met. She's sort of the Border Collie mix. But that's the dog we know that we've tested, right? Okay, they got a little fast. The camera went off. So they're playing some chase games, and it's a small enough area they can't get a lot of speed, and they interrupt. Candy Corn went to some of the people in there who were instructed to ignore the dogs. They're doing some chase. They're sharing it. One of the things you want to look at is dogs that are sort of friends and having fun together, just like people, will pick up mannerisms from the other one, right? Like you have a best friend, you look nothing like them, but after being with them for years, people are like, are you sisters, or are you brother and sister? Because you develop mannerisms in the same thing. You imitate, and you don't do it deliberately. You do it just because you love them, and you want to be more like them. And I think dogs do it too, and they'll do it very quickly. And when they stop, they're both rough and they're both physical. And if they weren't, I think it wouldn't be good play. But they're both a little on the edge.
They really don't use much mouth.
They don't use much mouth. Now look, Candy Corn, the lighter dog, stopped, found something to sniff at. And let me go back because it's really great. As soon as she did, Prancer stopped in full swing and said, oh wait, what are we sniffing at? Let's sniff. So right, there's Prancer's like, are we playing? Oh no, let's sniff. Let's face the same direction. Let's keep our tails exactly the same because we're sisters. Let's turn together. Great, let's sniff now. And then one of them eventually will say, well, let's play now. And it's probably Candy. She turns around. And again, they always look just like each other, right? They're unrelated. Candy Corn came with the Halloween litter, and Prancer came with the Christmas litter. It's not litters, they're transports. And they're looking at each other every once in a while. They are absolutely communicating. What's their arousal level now? Very low. Then they're both sniffing the same spot. Prancer's tired. It's one of the benefits of play, right, is that they get tired out like nobody's business. You can have a volunteer walk them for hours. They will not get as tired as two dogs playing. So that's one of the benefits if they're playing well. And the other question you ask yourself if you're going to form play groups is either dog learning something or practicing something you don't want them to practice. And I would say both these dogs play a little rough. They do some chasing, but they nobody's god-awful. I don't think either dog could necessarily get along with a more feeble dog or a more fragile dog, right? But they're both well matched. Now here they are, and they're like, hey, how about a drink of water? Great idea. You drink. No, I drink. Well, if you're going to drink, I'm going to drink. And again, it's very healthy play. It's intense. It's good exercise. They're evenly matched. It doesn't escalate. Nobody's interrupting it, but they interrupt themselves. Healthy play, make a nice play group, even just the two of them. And those are two dogs I probably would leave unsupervised together. Two dogs together, I'm not so worried about any kind of a gang up. They're very evenly matched, and they ebb and flow on their own. I like what I see there. How long would I leave them out there? Until they're done. No. I would want to leave them out there, obviously in the hot weather, not as long as in other weather, but like I would bring them in now. They're both tired because they're both, up from the south. They're not in very good shape. So it didn't take much to exhaust them. Or I would leave them out another hour. If it were nice weather and they could just lie down and stop playing, I would leave them out there longer. We tend to, if there's only 2 dogs out, we'll rotate a bunch of dogs so they wouldn't get to stay out terribly long. Would you place these 2 dogs together? Yeah, I would. What's the risk? Why does it depend on the owner? What would you? What could the harm be? The harm could be they're both adolescents, and they like to play a lot. And if the owner doesn't play a lot with them or train them a lot and develop a great bond and relationship with both dogs, the adolescents will bond together and they'll connive plans to bomb the house and they do bad things. But they seem to get along well, despite the fact that they're 2 females, same age, same size. I think there's not a lot of status seeking. They're both playful. They respect each other. They seem to like each other. I would do the placement. I don't know why somebody with an adolescent dog would want another adolescent dog, but it's really not my question.
How would you kennel those 2 inside together?
Would I kennel those 2 inside together? I would. The only thing to look at is sometimes they look great when they play outside, but in a small space, one of them may resource guard, like water bowl, food bowl, whatever. So you'd want to look at that. You know that pretty quickly because they'll have a spat. I think we did kennel them together, actually. Do I think that when you kennel dogs together that it hurts their chances to get adopted? No. In fact, the study in Germany found just the opposite. So no, it doesn't. I think it helps ground a lot of dogs, and we haven't found that. We often pretty much have to feed them separately. So we've guillotine indoor-outdoor. We'll feed 1 dog in and 1 dog out, and that's pretty much protocol to avoid any issues. Feeding time at a shelter can be such a frenzied experience anyway. All right. So let me ask you a couple questions about dog-to-dog stuff. This is the situation here is this is a large brown mixed breed with a skin problem. So the question at the shelter is, we're just going to look at his dog-to-dog stuff. What are his dog-to-dog skills like? And do you choose him out of 100 dogs there to treat for his medical condition? So he's an adult, intact male. Your average southern stray. Yep, it's our Labrador, who really wouldn't notice. So you're going to let this dog go?
No.
Why not? Describe what you're seeing. Otherwise, I work at your shelter and I just think you don't like big brown moth-eaten dogs. So you're saying he's out of control. Describe what you're seeing. Okay, straining at the end of the leash. Did he... His arousal is one continuous escalation. Did he look at people at all? Did he? No, he's sort of glaring at somebody right now, but it's not a warm check-in. Okay, good. Would you let him go all the way up to that other dog? No, because he is chomping at the bit, wanting to use his mouth. That's an unsafe dog. And if you have 100 dogs, many of them really nice, and a lot of them not nice, that's not the dog that you choose to spend your resources on if you're still euthanizing adoptable dogs. Or you don't know what you're euthanizing because you don't evaluate temperament. Okay, very good. Let me ask you another one. Okay, these 2 dogs are going to meet. I believe this is Sandy. She's about a 1-year-old, probably a Southern Blackmouth Cur pit type cross. Southern Blackmouth Cur is your basic Southern large hunting dog. They don't look any hugely particular way because they're not bred so much for look as they are for hunting. And I believe she's going to meet another southern black-mouthed cur male. So let's say the owner owns this dog, this year-old, year-and-a-half dog. This is Sandy, spayed female. And she's going to meet an 8-month-old intact male black-mouthed cur. That's his tail. So she jumped on him, kind of rudely. She didn't ask any questions. She was like, gonna jump on you, man. And he's younger and he's male. And she let go and he said, I'm gonna jump on you, man. And she grabbed him. He threw her off. It's a little hop sing. Okay, so you're going to do the adoption? If so, why? And maybe what are your concerns? And if not, why not? What are your concerns? Who's going to do the adoption? Okay, a couple brave souls who decided to vote. Everyone else is just chicken.
They have very similar play styles.
They have similar play styles, I would absolutely agree.
I would be very concerned that that is all that they would do.
She's very concerned that that's all that they would do. And what would make you say that?
Because
That's all they did. Woomph, goomph, woomph, goomph. And again, they're both young. They're both kind of adolescent. They're both strong. And so what would you tell an owner who said, well, we really love him and we have 80 acres and we just love him? I would educate the owners on what could happen if the dogs just played a lot. And I would tell them everything I would tell you, I would say, I think it's important that you intervene. I would take them each to class separately. You want to make sure that you can put one dog in the house, take the other dog out, play with him, fetch or tug or whatever his game is. Put that one in the house, take the other one out. You have 2 adolescent dogs. Sometimes the worst thing that could happen is that they play well, because then they're going to play all the time, and it's like Lord of the Flies. You'll start losing any control that you ever had over them, because dog play, when it's fun, is very fun. And I would tell them that. And then they might say, well, I don't care. I work all day, and I don't care. I just want them to play. I want them to have company while I'm away. And I'm like, Godspeed. Speed, it's your right. And I don't think anything horrible will. Who knows what horrible will happen. And if you didn't do the adoption, those would be the same concerns, right? You don't do the adoption because you're worried that they're 2 big, strong dogs and all they did was play. I know. And so now I feel like we've done 2 hours of dog-to-dog stuff, and I feel like we probably know less now than we did when you first walked in, right? It's like all these questions, every interaction doesn't tell you, it just brings up more questions. But I think that's an okay place to be in the dog world. I think if you think you really have it figured out or you know what that dog really is, you're probably in a lot of trouble. And I feel like the more I learn and observe, just the more questions I have. It's not like the more answers I have. I like what experience gives me, because every time you make a decision, you don't know what happens to the dogs you euthanize. You do know what happens to the dogs you decide to place, and you need to be able to learn from every one of those, which means if they get returned or you talk to an owner, ask as many in-depth questions as possible, and because you want to try and find out as much as possible. And I think every shelter tries to make the right decision every time, whether it's place or euthanize. Both carry a huge weight of responsibility. Both will keep you up at night, and both will make you wonder how you'll be judged when you die. It's true, really hard decisions, and I'm telling you, sometimes you worry more about the dog you placed with the family with the kids as you do about the dog you euthanized, because you predicted he would be violent. And here is the ideal line, and you try to achieve it, and you won't always achieve it. You'll be on either side every once in a while. What you want to make sure you're not doing is making a mistake by placing a dog that actually will kill somebody or kill another dog. And it's been done 4 times now by shelters. And you want to make sure also that you're not euthanizing some really great dog because it had a snotty nose or it had, heartworm or something. Or nobody recognized it. You don't temperament test because you think it's evil and it's the enemy, and so you don't evaluate. And so that really great dog who was very plain looking or ugly or sick or whatever, nobody knew how great he was, and he got euthanized. And somebody once said at a workshop that, you either err on the side of the dog or you err on the side of the human. And I think it's true. I'm not saying what is right and what is wrong. I think you have to realize that this whole thing is your community, and you live in your community, and people depend on you and the shelter in your community to create this humane place to live and be a pet owner and to be a hiker and a non-dog owner as well. And I never felt it as personally as when I had my own shelter. And I started my own shelter in 1993. And before that, I worked in everyone else's shelter, and it was more anonymous, right? So like if I thought that dog was maybe a little problematic, but I hoped he got placed, it was never really, it wouldn't fall on me, or it was New York City, and there's how many million people. I'd never meet the actual adopter of that dog. But in my community, you go to any restaurant in my town, and a waiter or waitress has adopted a dog, or the owner has adopted a dog. And I'm not kidding you, almost every hike that I've taken on our bigger trailheads, I get there and I'll either meet an on-leash dog that was adopted from my shelter, and it meets my dogs, or as the case with most pet people, it's an off-leash dog. They have no control over it, and it's all over my dog. So I better damn well make sure that those dogs aren't truly dog aggressive. But my community is my community. I went in for surgery a few years ago, not in this community, but when I was a trainer in a different community. And I'm about to go under the knife, general anesthesia, and the last person I see, I'm all sedated, it's the nurse anesthesiologist. She comes over and she looks down and she goes, "I know you!" And your final thought is, please, let me have done a good job, right? So you never know who your adopters are. Your choices have to be made with dogs and people in mind, and the best choices for what works in your community. And you'll make mistakes. You will. Some you won't know about ever, or till we die, or whatever, and others you'll know because they'll get returned. And you have to find where you're comfortable at, and also depends on who are the people in your community. What do they tolerate? What is unacceptable to most of the people in your community in terms of dog problems? And whatever works for your community. It's different in urban and suburban and rural areas. And it's different depending on where you are. So anyway, I came to Prairie States, maybe like 10 years ago. And it was a great conference. I had a great time. And then every Prairie States always ends up being the exact same time as Camp Gone to the Dogs. And I'm an instructor at Camp Gone to the Dogs. Cushiest job you'd ever want. Mayor was there too. Oh my God, you get paid to be at a dog camp with your dogs for a week. It's just great. But I'm an instructor, and I'm committed to that, and I could never do Prairie States. So this year, thank you very much, you changed Prairie States so I could come. It was just so nice. It was, thank you. So thank you for having me and rearranging everything so I could get here. It's a great conference, and it's a great exhibit hall, and I hate your weather. Thank you.